Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I am Arjun Chowdhury. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Wednesday, the 10th of February. PIAA employees end strike, resume flight operations in Pakistan. Foreign guest houses in Kabul, possible targets of militant attack, warns US Embassy. And 5 soldiers killed in Myanmar plane crash. And now for all the details. Employees of Pakistan International Airlines or the PIAA have ended their strike, resuming flight operations nationwide. The employees' union and government is said to have reached an understanding.
The Joint Action Committee or JAC of Pakistan International Airlines employees announced the end of its strike on Tuesday, asking the airline workers to get back to work with immediate effect. This comes after reports emerged that the employees' union has received some kinds of sureties from the government, the details of which are not yet divulged. The PIAA employees had been protesting for the last 8 days against the proposed privatization of the national flag carrier. Though the strike has been called off, officials said it would take PIAA a couple of weeks to sort out its disrupted flight schedule because of the backlog of passengers who missed their flights and were stranded in various countries. Despite the PIAA staff members halting the flight operations, demanding the withdrawal of a bill to convert the cash-strapped PIAA into a public holding company, the government refused to budge, even warning actions against the protesters. The standoff has cost the airline thousands of dollars.
In neighboring Afghanistan, the United States has issued an alert over a possible attack on foreign guest houses in Kabul. The alert comes amid deteriorating security situation across the country, including capital Kabul.
According to the Embassy of the United States in Kabul, insurgents could launch an attack on its citizens staying in foreign guest houses early this month. The security alert was issued on Tuesday based on reports received by the embassy. The US Embassy in Kabul has received reports that as of early February 2016, unidentified insurgents are planning to attack unidentified foreign guest houses in Kabul city, possibly near the Kala-e-Fatullah neighborhood, a statement by US Embassy said. The attack could also occur near Ansari or Haji Yaqub roundabouts in Kabul city, the statement said, adding that there is no further information regarding the timing, target, location or method of any planned attack. In the past few months, the Taliban has launched numerous coordinated attacks and offensives in various provinces of the country and in capital Kabul. The insurgents want to topple the US-backed Afghan government and re-establish harsh Islamic laws in the country. The attacks come amid the ongoing efforts to put an end to the violence through peaceful negotiations between the Taliban and the Afghan government.
Traders in Gilgit-Baltistan recently called a strike to mark their protest against the heavy taxation policy followed by the government. Gilgit-Baltistan's falling economy is a result of limited industrial activity in the region, and the situation is worsening as repressive tax policies are dissuading small traders from doing business.
Lack of job opportunities and falling economy has pushed people in Gilgit-Baltistan below poverty line. And those who want to live a dignified life by engaging in small businesses and trade are being suppressed and exploited by government officials. Recently, traders in Gilgit-Baltistan held a strike to protest against the repressive tax regime imposed by the government. Despite a long history of protests against Islamabad's brutal repression and harsh policies, Gilgit-Baltistan has remained a region of neglect and exploitation. Locals say that Pakistan has over the years denied them their basic rights and instead imposed heavy taxes.
जब हुकूक करने की बात आती है तो कहते हो कि ये इलाका मुतनाज़ा है और पाकिस्तान कहता है कि पाकिस्तान की सरजमीन आईने पाकिस्तान का हिस्सा नहीं है जब नहीं है
Despite being rich in natural resources, Gilgit-Baltistan has not done very well in realizing its economic potential. Locals say the government, instead of setting up industries and boosting employment, has abandoned locals. Frequent protests by traders and other local employees against the government policies are badly affecting the administration in the region.
As India's Auto Expo wrapped up this week, manufacturers are geared up for an even stronger year ahead. But the journey to clocking in double-digit growth is fraught with speed bumps.
At the auto show in New Delhi, India's automakers are revved up. Maruti Suzuki betting on its first SUV ever. Hyundai jumping in with its own concept car. Then here's Honda's newest and smallest SUV as well. According to Nomura, India's auto market will stay in top gear this year. It is expected to expand over 15%. That is miles ahead of the global growth rate of just over 3%.
What we predict that in the shorter term, with not much of changes in policy happening, impacting the business sentiments, as because it's driven by consumer sentiments in the industry, this year it should be in line with what most of the forecasters have predicted. So we are looking at a market growth of 8 to 10%, which is there in the short term. But as many would have predicted that this market by 2020 will become the third largest market globally.
But there are problems ahead. Pollution. A government clampdown on diesel vehicles might force automakers to rethink their strategy.
With emission norms becoming tighter, all car manufacturers, all bike manufacturers have started looking at alternate hybrids and alternate power that are going to be now coming to the mobility of four-wheel and two-wheel drive. I do see strongly that by 2030 we would have between 90 and 95% hybrids and electric vehicles on the road with a very minimal representation of fossil fuel left anymore.
A new car can cost as little as $3,000 in India. But the fact remains that a car is a luxury for most of the population. But with repeated interest rate cuts and lower fuel prices finally reflected at the pumps, automakers are betting the good times will keep rolling.
Moving on, all 5 Myanmar soldiers on board a military plane were killed in a crash in capital Naypyidaw on Wednesday. The twin-engine turboprop fixed-wing aircraft Beechcraft 1900D, bound for the northern Shan states, crashed shortly after taking off from Naypyidaw airport in what was a routine flight check. Local media reported that the crash was caused after the plane's power supply to the circuit board failed when the pilot attempted to increase altitude. Myanmar has a busy aviation sector, partly to compensate for the country's poor road and rail infrastructure. While military air crashes is relatively uncommon, there have been several incidents involving commercial planes in recent years. The United Nations has assured that it will not force Sri Lanka to accept a role for international judges in investigating war crimes committed during 26-year-old long civil war, only if the process is impartial and independent.
Wrapping up his 4-day visit to the island nation, United Nations Human Rights Commissioner Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein said that Sri Lanka must confront and defeat the demons of its past and create accountable institutions that deliver justice, truth and security. He commended the current president Maithripala Sirisena's efforts to provide justice to the victims of the civil war, but added that much more is needed to be done. Hussein added that United Nations will not force the government to accept the role of foreign judges if the victims of the civil war have confidence in a national mechanism.
I mean, we are not forcing anything on the government of Sri Lanka. The government of Sri Lanka, the president has stated his preference, his position. We have stated our preference. There will be a very comprehensive, I hope, consultative process, and then out of that we will see what final shape this mechanism will be. Well, from our perspective, it's the victims who ultimately have the final say. If whatever Sri Lanka decides upon has the support of the victims on all sides, that is okay with us. If the mechanism is impartial and independent, that is okay with us.
In October last year, the UNHRC had prescribed an international hybrid court with foreign judges, prosecutors and investigators to probe the alleged rights abuses during the Sri Lanka's ethnic conflict that ended in 2009. Sri Lanka had then said that it would establish a special court to examine alleged war crimes, which could seek advice from international experts but will remain domestic. The United Nations believes that both the Sri Lankan military and Tamil Tiger rebels have committed war crimes during the war. During his visit to review the country's progress in prosecuting alleged war crimes, Hussain met with several senior government officials, including President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. He also met ethnic Tamil leaders and the families of missing victims during his visit to the northern and eastern province of the country, which were active conflict zones during the civil war.
The International Commission of Jurists has called for immediate release of Maldives Judge Ahmed Nihan, who has been detained on charges of forging an arrest warrant against President Abdullah Yameen.
The International Commission of Jurists said that the arrest of Ahmed Nihan, a senior judge of the Alif Dhal Mamigili Magistrate Court, was another blow to the independence of judiciary and rule of law in Maldives. Nihan was arrested with former Prosecutor General Muttahas Muhsin on Sunday night for forging a warrant for President Abdullah Yameen's arrest. The High Court has placed the judge in police custody for a week. President Yameen alleged that the fraudulent warrant issued against him was a part of a coup plot to overthrow his government. The warrant called for President Yameen's arrest for his alleged involvement in the embezzlement of nearly $80 million from a state-owned tourism promotion company. The Maldivian government is already reeling under intense international pressure to release former President Mohammad Nasheed along with other political prisoners, with many accusing the arrests of being politically motivated.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. PIAA employees end strike, resume flight operations in Pakistan. Foreign guest houses in Kabul possible targets of militant attack, warns US Embassy. And 5 soldiers killed in Myanmar plane crash. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.